How's everybody doing today? Hope this message finds you doing wonderfully well. Lots of leads, lots of opportunities. Yeah, going into the fourth quarter feeling really good. So drop in the chat as we wait for Jose if you have any questions or concerns for me. Any way that I can help or be of assistance in some way. How does a realtor calendar should look like every week? That's a good question. And it's interesting because this is what we're going to talk about today is like the day in the life of an agent. So there's two types of activities, right? There's income producing activities and income servicing activities. Income producing activities are things like prospect, lead, follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. Income servicing activities are things like listing coordination, transaction coordination, and marketing. So Connie, the breakdown needs to be that, particularly at the beginning, that 80 to 90% of your time needs to be spent on income producing activities. Right. So learning how to sell, learning what to say and how to say it. And learning how to, oh, look, he's here for the time management portion of our presentation. So,
hey, everybody.
Yeah. So Connie asked the question while we were waiting for you. She was like, hey, what does a realtor's calendar should look like? And that's really what we were going to talk about today, right? Is a day in the life of an agent. Mm-hmm. So I was explaining, which you can add to, that there's income producing activities and income servicing activities.
Yeah.
And income producing activities are things like prospecting, lead, follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. I would propose also like learning the specialized knowledge of what to say and how to say it. Mm-hmm. And income servicing activities are, listing coordination, transaction coordination, marketing systems, like things like that. And at the beginning, what I would suggest to Connie is that she should spend pretty much all of her time, like 80, 90% of her time, on income producing activities and the acquisition of the skill set of learning how to sell. Would you agree with that?
100%. So topic is a day in the life of a realtor. I think the main thing, and this is one of the very first things that I got, is the time management portion. I wish I would have been on time to basically fully deliver on that. But I would say is that if you had a traditional job, in a traditional job, you would have to do certain activities at certain times, basically. You would be taking lunch at a certain time. You would be stopping work at a certain time. You would be entering work at a certain time. I think that one of the things I did extremely well at the very beginning of my career, and even now, is that I treat it like a real job, meaning I go in at a certain time, I exit at a certain time, I eat lunch at a certain time, I attend certain meetings at a certain time. But Aaron is right. At the very beginning, even more, 80+% of your time should be spent on income generating activities and developing the skills. So when I got started, I would be role playing at 7 o'clock in the morning to 7:30. I'd be prospecting at 7:30 or 8 o'clock already. 8 to 11:30, I would be prospecting. 11:30, I would be practicing again. 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, I would be taking lunch, or 12 to 12:30, I'd be taking lunch.
And what's interesting is, well, I guess as you keep going down that list, I'm aware at the beginning that was not your schedule because nobody pointed out to you, this is what you should be doing, correct?
Correct. It wasn't until I saw it. And once I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what my job is, basically.
That's right. And then, and here's what's interesting is when you didn't know where to be spending your time, you spent the time in areas that weren't income producing activities. And how did that go for the first 6 months?
So for the first 6 months, I didn't close a single deal. And there was obviously like I think one of the big lessons that I learned at the very beginning, and the reason I didn't close a deal, was I was trying to convince people to buy or sell, versus the name of the game is finding people that already want to buy and sell. And once I found the first person that was like, hey, I need to buy a property and I need to buy it by this timeline, I was like, oh my God, this is what I need to be doing. And from that point forward, I just spent my time looking for people that needed to buy or sell, basically.
That's right. And, I see Wilkins here. He's like, hey, I find that the better self-image of myself gets drained out by lots of distractions such as YouTube, Facebook. would you guys delete these platforms? Well, here's what's interesting is I think that they're really good for learning. I've learned a ton. You know, I tell my wife regularly, you know how much stuff I've learned from TikTok, man? Like so much, right? Or platforms like I send you videos regularly, like, yo, you got to watch this.
Yeah.
I use it to educate myself, not to entertain, really. Now, what I'm also aware of, though, is that for a lot of people, they can become creative avoidance behavior. So they do it in replacement of the activities. So, Wilkins, to answer your question, in my opinion, I wouldn't say like, you know, delete them completely. But what I would say is become aware, like, am I doing this in replacement of the activities piece and calling that work? When the truth is if you go in as an agent and you're not doing prospect lead follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals, if you're not engaged in those activities, you're not working. Like a day not spent prospecting is a day not spent working. Like you need to understand that. A day running around doing errands is not a day working. Like your job is to be in the presence of prospects, and your schedule needs to reflect that.
Yeah. I also think that for certain people, if you don't have the self-discipline to be able to be like, okay, I'm only going to spend 10 minutes at this time. Or if you're finding yourself, like if you're looking at the app on your iPhone and it says like an hour on there on social media or 2 hours on there on social media, and it feels like it's a behavior that you can't control. In certain cases, it may make sense to basically like make it more challenging for you to go on the apps. So what you can do is you can log out of the app, and then what you can do is you can put the app on a different telephone that basically is available on your off time, basically. So there's ways to be able to still, like Aaron said, it could be an educational tool. What I'm also aware of is that some people use it as creative avoidance. So if you're finding yourself in those patterns, I've done things where I have logged out of social media for a week or two if I'm finding myself like over consuming and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I found myself putting it on a different telephone that's not my cell phone, so that I'm not like doing it in between calls or anything like that.
Yeah, and there's two things that I want to like really impress upon you, Wilkins. Is one is doing is better than watching. Yeah. I'm gonna say it to you again, not because you didn't hear me. Doing is better than watching. So a lot of people spend a lot of time watching other people do things, but like you doing it is better than just watching. The second thing is you want to consume to create. Most people don't consume to create; they can consume to distract. So I consume content to create things, to produce things, right? Not just to distract myself, right?
And I would say too, like if you watch Alex or read Alex Hermosi's, I think the lead generation one, he talks about how there's 4 different ways to prospect. Basically, there is your warm market, which is your sphere of influence. There is cold market, which is basically cold calling. There is paid advertisements, which is like PPC, pay per lead, that sort of thing. And then there is social media, not consuming social media, but posting social media, and also like direct messaging. So I have agents that's what the way that they prospect, you know, and they're basically DMing people and starting conversations with people. That's actually a form of prospecting. But I think what Aaron was saying too is there's a difference between consuming and creating, basically. Where you want to spend time on is not in the consuming portion of it. You want to spend time in the creative or in the connection portion of it, where you're DMing people, letting them know that you're an agent, wondering if they would be interested in buying or selling, or creating content that would attract your ideal type of client as well too. So whatever your avatar is, Aaron knows what his avatar is. What's your avatar?
Yeah, so my avatar is an agent between the ages of 18 and 45. And 85% of them are men. And
that's his avatar.
That's my avatar. And I know that the women who do kind of connect with the content are usually like very proactive and aggressive. And that's okay. So if you know who the avatar is, like you don't have to create content for everybody. You're creating content for the avatar. So, but this idea, like if we go back to like schedule, like you were giving a very clear, concise what to do with your time as time allotted. And what I think is interesting about that, Jose, is that I think a lot of people get into this industry because they don't want to follow a schedule. They want to be able to do whatever they want to do. They want to have the freedom to, you know, kind of be where they want to be when they want to be there. And what's super like interesting about that is that if you actually want to make like do deals in high volume and make lots of money, you have to be very regimented in your schedule. You got to actually be the opposite of that. And your example
100%.
is just perfect, where like at the beginning, and the same was true for me, I only made $13,000 my first like 10 months in the business. Nobody was very clear with me. Hey, this is the schedule you need to follow. This is where you need to be spending time. This is what you should be doing at this time and this time and this time.
Yeah. And for me, like I remember shadowing a couple people. They were producing the outcomes that I wanted to produce, and I would watch their schedule. And once I saw how they operate, I'm like, okay, most of them had their appointments in the afternoon. The time slots could be different. My time slots are 3 and 5:30. Those are usually my ideal appointment time. So if somebody tells me, Jose, I'd like to, do you have time on 11 o'clock in the morning? I'm like, I basically say, hey, look, like, is there any way that we could do either 3 or 5:30? Or, hey, look, I'm actually checking the calendar. It looks like I have a meeting at that time. Would 3 o'clock or 5:30 be?
And what's interesting is the appointment that you have at that time is your prospecting. So like what I'm aware of is that if you don't have a schedule, you're on somebody else's.
Yeah.
So, what I used to do is I used to like have things that were important to me and I tried to fit them in. Do you know what ended up happening, Jose, when I did that? They never got done. Yeah. I never got time to do them. And that's how most people do it. Where instead, what I learned is whatever's important to me, that is non-negotiable, and everything else gets fit in around it. Now, I know you do this in your life, but when you do that, you have to be okay with like people not being okay with it or getting pushback. I just did a live in-person event today, and I was telling them like, and I was kind of having Carla interact where I said, the first 5 years, first 10 years, really, I was like, where was I on Christmas Eve? She's like, prospecting. I'm like, where was I after Christmas? She was like, prospecting. And I'm like, how many people push back? She's like, a lot. I'm like, who? She's like, me and all of these other people. But I know you've had conversations with Mariela where you're like, look, this is a season, man. I'm going to have to work 6 days a week. This is what's going to have to happen because here's what we're doing. And then Carla, it was cool because in front of everybody, she was like, well, I'm like, well, why did you, why
were you okay with it?
Yeah. Why were you okay with it? You know what she said? Because you always do what you say you're going to do. I trust you.
Well,
so this idea that when you build a schedule, you're going to have to be okay with pushback. Like there's no way around it. Like when you say no, it's just hard to say no. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I need you to stop by at 9. And what you said is a perfect way of doing it. I'm looking here at my schedule. I actually have an appointment at that time. They don't have to know what the appointment is. It's prospecting. Yeah. I'm looking here. If we were to connect, I guess under normal conditions, would you be available this time or this time? Right? Which is times where you're available. All right. Gerardo says, I'm a new agent trying to shift from full-time.
Well, I think too, on that topic is at the very beginning of your career, there's going to be friends and family who are like, oh, Jose can leave work whenever he wants. And they're going to test you guys. And this happened to me very early on in my career where there were certain people like, oh, Jose doesn't like have a real, not a real job, but he doesn't have anybody to tell him when he can leave. And people would be like, hey, like, since you don't have a job, could you go do this for me? Or could you go do that for me? Or could you do this for me? And I remember feeling like internal conflict saying no with that.
Because part of you wanted to be like, yeah, like I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy. Like I'll be able to accommodate.
I wanted to help. But the other part of me was like, everything you say yes to is something else that you say no to. So by me saying yes to that, I'm saying no to prospecting. By me saying yes to that, I'm saying no to my personal goals and dreams and ambitions, basically. And I remember like setting a boundary where I was like, look, I understand that I don't really have anybody that tells me what time I have to come in or what time I have to leave. I also understand that the agents that make it big actually follow a schedule. And right now my schedule says that I need to be making telephone calls, generating business. I want to help you. Unfortunately, I'm not able to help you at that time. If you need the help, I can help you at this time, which at that time was like 7 or 8 o'clock or whatever time my schedule allowed me to do it, basically. And I think being able to do that kind of stuff allowed me to focus on the prospecting. So let's jump. I just wanted to kind of share that because I know that for a lot of new agents, they're going to get that type of like, can you do this or can you go do that? And just remember that everything you say yes to is something else you say no to.
Yeah, it's perfect. Love that. So Gerardo asks, he says, I'm a new agent. I'm trying to shift my job to full-time. Any advice? I'm currently doing open house on the weekend. Okay, so here's the challenge. Okay, doing this job part-time is very hard, particularly if the goal and objective is to try to make it a full-time thing. Now, the open houses on the weekend, in my opinion, and every time I post on this, Jose, everybody loses their mind. Okay.
Yeah,
I get like 100, 200 comments that I don't know what I'm talking about. But, 2,000 homes later, I would propose, we kind of understand it. Is that two things can be true at the same time. Okay. But something's more true than something else. So is it true that if you sit in an open house every once in a while, does a squirrel every now and then find a nut? Yes. Are you eventually going to maybe bump into a deal? Yes. What's more true, though, is if you take the weekends to learn the skill of what to say and how to say it, to sit in a room and actively prospect and look for sellers, over time, right, you will become more productive, more efficient, and it'll be able to become a full-time thing for you. So what I would propose is the methodology of sitting around in an open house is very reactive. Like you're waiting for people to show up. You're not being proactive. And while, yes, does it lead to a handful of deals every once in a while? What's more true is that if I focus on acquiring the skill on the weekend and I prospect for 3 hours a day for those 2 days, it's going to benefit you much better in the long run. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. So what I would also say is like, and I think this is the reason why you get pushback, because people do deals on open houses. Can you get a deal from an open house? 100% you can. Can you get 10 deals from an open house? 100%. 20 deals from an open house? 100%. Can you do 100, 150, 200? I have yet to see that somebody does an open house every weekend and gets 200 deals out of it. So I think that the roadmap that Aaron is basically saying is that the formula to do 20 deals a year is different than the formula to do 100 deals a year or 150 deals a year.
Yeah.
Personally, I haven't done an open house in like over 7, 8, 9 years, basically. Like it's been like almost like a decade, I would imagine, that the last time I've done an open house.
And when you were doing open houses, what was your level of production?
My level of production was a lot lower. It was like maybe like 10, 20 deals in a year. So
which is super
what we're sharing with you is the formula if you want to do high production. Like if you want to do 100 deals, 150, 200 deals, this is the formula. If you want to do 10, 20, there's different roadmaps, there's different formulas, and it's okay if you want to do 10 and 20. There's nothing wrong with it. The formula is just going to be different and the advice is going to be different.
That's right. So your goal dictates the roadmap and the action that you need to take. Yeah. Now, what I would suggest, Gerardo, is if your goal is to make this your primary vocation as fast as possible, sitting around and waiting is not the best strategy. That if your goal is to make this your primary vocation, learning the skill of what to say and how to say it and active prospecting, that will allow you to make this your primary vocation as fast as possible.
Not only that, but you have to remember, like, who typically walks into an open house? Is it a buyer or a seller?
Buyers,
right? Now, can you get a seller from an open house? Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. But you have to remember that if you want to be a high producing agent, the way to do it is all on the seller side. I did a presentation maybe like a month ago, and I did a study out of the top 10 agents in my marketplace. The top 10 agents, 9 out of 10 of them, 50 or more % of their business came from listings sold. Why? Why is it that 9 out of the 10, more than 50% came from listings sold? Because that's where all the leverage is at. So if you look at the amount of time that it takes you from start to finish invested with a seller to start to finish with a buyer, I would say that a buyer is probably like 120 hours that you're going to invest into it versus a seller, maybe like 10, 15 hours that you're going to invest in that relationship. So if you look at it, you get paid the same amount of money, like $15,000 on either one, but your hourly rate's actually a lot lower because naturally buyers take a lot more time in terms of going out, showing properties, in terms of being more dependent on the sellers and the listing agent schedule versus your schedule. So you also have to think about the type of consumer that you're attracting at an open house.
Yeah, which is a perfect point, because here Gerardo he has a primary vocation 5 days a week. He's sitting in an open house attracting a buyer, which is going to want to see properties during the week. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's much more effective and efficient if he took a listing, because when he takes the listing, guess what? While he's at his job, other people can show and sell the property.
Now I will say this, and this is something that I did at the very beginning. At the very beginning of your career, if you got $0 in the bank account and like you're like, hey, look, like I need to make some money. I don't care if it's a buyer that you're getting in escrow. I don't care if it's a seller. The main goal is just to get an escrow. But what I did is, and I started off as a buyer's agent, which I think was different than Aaron. I don't know if you started off as a buyer's agent, but
no, I did too, on somebody's team, bro.
On somebody's team. I did too on somebody's team. And I'm glad that I did, because it allowed me to kind of understand both sides of the business. But once I realized that all of the leverage is on the listing side, I made a goal that once I reached a certain metric, I was going to only focus on sellers. And I remember when I made that decision, and I don't remember what the goal was. I think maybe like 60, 70. So I had a couple of different goals. One was, and this is so funny, once I had $5,000 in my bank account, I was going to go full time.
Hey, isn't that funny that was like the amount?
$5,000 in my bank account. I was like,
whole dollars.
If I had that, I was going to go full time, because I lived with my parents at that time. I was like 23, whatever. So, and then the second goal that I made, I was like, and I don't remember the exact number, so don't quote me on it. It was maybe like 60, 70, or 80,000. Once I was like, once I get to $80,000, I have an assistant already. I'm going to go full time on the listing side. And what that meant was that I was not going to cherry pick buyers. Like, some people want to go on the listing side, but they're scared that they won't be able to have the amount of production that they need to be able to sustain their lifestyle. I basically said, cold turkey, I'm done. I'm only focused on sellers. I was still getting buyer referrals. And the challenge was that whenever I got buyer referrals saying, hey, look, I do have an agent that works on my team who's actually going to help you. That was the hard part, because I was so good at it. And I basically knew how to convert them. And there was a challenge there, because my sister at that time wasn't as good as I was. So I had a teacher, I had to mentor her on how to convert buyers the right way. And I had that transition now. Now it's going to get to I have a different goal now, that once I get to a certain amount of residual income, I am stopping selling real estate. And I know that goal, it's very clear. And then I'm going to focus just on media and attraction for agents. But so what I would propose for you is set that goal to, hey, once you get to X amount, you go full time. Then at the beginning, just doesn't matter, buyers, sellers, get certain amount of money in your bank account. Once you have that, or once you feel certain about, once you get to a certain goal, set it and then do that. It's going to be very hard for you to get to second base if you got your foot on first base. So you got to let go of your foot on first base to get to second base. So at time, you're going to have to make a decision at some point if your goal is to get to 80, 100 deals. Now, if you want to do 10, 20, it won't really matter what you do, basically.
Yeah, not too much. You could just go the traditional route. Now, Connie asked a question which is interesting. She's like, well, there's a lot of ideas for content, blah, blah, blah. But you also asked the question ahead of that, what should the calendar look like? Well, here's what I would propose or suggest. Is most agents, particularly at the beginning, they need income like fast. Mm-hmm. And while I'm aware that media is a wonderful source of prospecting, it's a different form of prospecting, usually doesn't produce like immediate results. Like, it takes time to build like an audience. It takes time to cultivate trust, to position yourself as a guide to help people to solve their problems. So what I would suggest is focus on acquiring the skill of what to say and how to say it, and how to talk to a stranger and set an appointment with them. And then, so how to prioritize time is very difficult. You're an independent contractor. You don't have somebody standing over you being like, hey, do this first, this second, this third. So you're trying to figure it out. What I would suggest to you, as somebody who's a little bit further down the path, right, is to focus on the skill, focus on prospecting, proactively and aggressively talking to buyers and sellers, whether that's door knocking, calling them, texting them, whatever. And that will lead to revenue much, much faster. The truth is that in our business, 70% of agents within their first year of getting their real estate license are doing something else. But this is the reason why, is because, there's not clear instruction on what they should be stacking their time on top of and the order of operations they should be doing it.
Well, the other thing I would say, and is I think you made a really good example, there's certain laws that don't change. And I think the gravity example. And I think when you said that, I was like, because I've always said your sphere of influence is the foundation of the business. And I think that's part of those laws as well, too. Yeah. But what I also think is that knowing what to say is the foundation. So regardless, like let's say that you post content on social media, are you going to have, and you generate a lead, are you going to have to talk to that individual and convert them into an actual escrow? Yes, you are. So if you generate leads via open houses, are you going to have to talk to that individual and convert them into an escrow? Are these people that you convert on social media going to say, well, I don't want to sign a buyer's broker agreement, or, hey, I only want to do a 30-day contract, or, hey, I don't want to pay 2.5%, or, hey, I've got a friend that I'm considering working with versus working with you, or, hey, I don't want to submit an offer at 800, I want to submit it at 750. They're going to say that to you. So really, just like gravity, if you don't believe that gravity is true, like jump off a 3-story building, and I promise you, like, it's true. There's certain laws that don't change. In real estate, I think regardless of whatever method you choose for prospecting, you're going to have to talk to the individual. So really, you're going to have to learn what to say. So I think at the very beginning, there has to be a heavy emphasis in finding people that can teach you what to say and how to say it, so that when you run into these prospects, I think that I know that you'll be able to say what to say. So if they say, I've got an agent, or, hey, I don't want to sign a buyer's broker agreement, or whatever they say to you, you understand what to say. And I think that a very heavy emphasis. The second thing that I would suggest is that a lot of people, when they start in real estate, they always want to start with cold business. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only problem with cold business is that they don't trust you because they don't know you. So I also think that long-term play, if you look at agents like myself or Aaron, a certain percentage of their business eventually will come from referrals, which tells me that the other part of the business, the foundation, is sphere of influence. So what I tell people when they barely become new agents is, look, before you go out and post content, before you go do this, download the list of everybody that you know. From social media, download that list. From your email list, download that list. From your contact book, download that list. From any other source, like your work or whatever, download the list, put it in an Excel sheet, go through it, sift it out, and develop a list of people that know you, like you, and trust you and would do business with you. And then start reaching out to them either through social media or start reaching out to them through a phone call. Let them know that you're in the business and start providing value to them, and then ask them for business and ask them what their plans are. Now, what's going to happen is as you're starting to prospect at open houses, you're going to come across people that are like, oh my God, this guy's a business owner. Let me add him to my sphere of influence. Let me build a relationship with him because this is somebody that could refer me multiple deals a year. If you just start prospecting and never focus on the sphere of influence, you're always just going to be on a treadmill looking for that new person that you're able to build trust with, even though you already have like 10 people here or 100 people here that know you, like you, and trust you and will refer you and do business with you at the very beginning. So learning what to say and developing that sphere of influence, reaching out to them. And then once you get in the pattern of that, then starting the cold outreach as well too, but with the emphasis of looking for people to add them to the sphere of influence as well too.
Agreed. Gerardo said, if I quit doing open houses, good. We've successfully helped him to see that may not be the best use of time. Who and where would I prospect? Should I target specific markets? I'm bilingual, perhaps Hispanic markets. Well, you want to be clear first on the avatar that you want to target. What I would suggest and I believe Jose agrees 1,000%, is sellers.
100%.
And we talked about why. There's just much more leveraged, right? Because if you had, 10 buyers right now, like you physically have to be there. If you have 10 listings right now, like somebody else could be showing and selling them while you're on this call with us, right? So it's just much more leveraged activity. Now, if there was a way where sellers could basically raise their hand, like imagine you were in an airplane and you're about to parachute into a market, and every home that was thinking about selling had a big red X on it. Would that be helpful? Of course. Well, there's people in the marketplace that have already done that and basically have a big red X on them. That is expired listings, that is canceled, that is for sale by owners. They're basically saying, hey, I am thinking about buying, like selling my home, like 100%. Right now, there may be various different degrees of motivation there, but that's why I need to call them and ask them questions to discover where they're at. But those are two really good groups. Other groups that I would propose or suggest that have very high degree of probabilities of selling are things around life events. So we talked on other calls or other webinars like probate, where people pass away. 65% of those homes are free and clear statistically. And if there is motivation, it's through the roof. Another one, which Jose has, done a lot of business in, is with divorces. Those homes with a high degree of probability, like at least 50% of them, they end up being sold. Pre-foreclosures, like those are going to be sold, right? So just areas in the market that we would call blue oceans, where, there's a lot of opportunity there and there's a super high degree of probability that, I'm going to be able to bump into somebody that wants to do deals. So this really has to do with being efficient. So if you're playing around in a lead source that doesn't, like, let's say you're looking for sellers, you're just doing just listed, just sold. You're just calling people randomly. If we take the same amount of time, you spend 3 hours, I spend 3 hours, but I'm focused on people that have either raised their hand and said, hey, or in pools where there's a super high degree of probability that somebody wants to sell, my results are going to be better.
But why do agents do that? Like some agents know that your results are going to be better, but they focus on the just listed, just sold because a lot of times there's less resistance. Mm-hmm. They're not like heavy competition or, hey, like get off the phone with me versus an expired. It's going to take you developing your skills at a higher level to be able to convert these expired. Yes, you'll talk to more contacts, but it really doesn't come down to the contacts. It comes down to targeting people that are raising their hand. That way you don't have to go through 400 people to get one person that's potentially raising their hand versus on an expired or for sale by owner. But you're going to need to learn what to say. Now, I love probates. I've been doing probates since 2014. I love them for a variety of reasons. Aaron did a lot of probates as well too. Aaron actually has a probate course. His probate course will teach you how to prospect probates. This is what I love about probates, and I'll kind of share with you, versus an expired or a canceled or a FSBO. A probate, a lot of times they inherit the property, which means that they're more realistic as to how to price the property because they're not emotionally connected to the property. Meaning that a lot of times you're going to price the property very well, which is going to attract more potential buyers for the property, which increases a chance of you potentially representing the buyer and the seller. So instead of one transaction, it could lead to two. Here's another reason I like probates. Sometimes people inherit 3 or 4 different properties. So one client can turn into 2 or 3 or 4 different listings. Here's another thing that I love about probates. A lot of them have deferred maintenance, which means that if you have relationships with investors or you're the investor, you may be able to capitalize and buy some of those probates as well too. Here's another reason I love probates. Another reason I love probates is you get to develop relationships with the attorney. So you provide good service to the PR. The PR goes to the attorney, says, hey, this guy's excellent, provided excellent service. That one attorney could refer you 2, 3, 4, 5 deals in a year. So you're actually able to build a business that can be referral based. Imagine like I get emailed like this, hey, Jose, I need you to reach out to this client. They're going to be listing their property. I've recommended you. It's like such a good email to get. And it's such a warm lead because they trust their attorney. And if their attorney is taking the time to recommend you, that means that like you're already like almost like won the listing, basically, as long as you don't say anything dumb,
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons I like probate. So probate would be a good business plan. Now, is it going to take you learning a certain set of skills? Yes. Is it going to take you learning a certain set of language? Yes. Is it going to require a business plan around that? But if you develop that, you can actually have a very good business in the next 3, 4, 5 years, and that course can help you with that.
Yeah, 100%. So like what I put in that course, which I just dropped a link for, is everything that I learned, like where to get the data, what information you're looking for in the data, how to get contact information for the individual, specifically what to say and how to say it, all of the objections. So that way you're fully equipped, right? And, the guy on my team, Heath, that I taught, everything that's in that course, he did 21 listings in the last 12 months, and he's part-time. He's a full-time cop.
All sellers.
So, and that's a perfect example for, I think it was Gerardo that was saying like, hey, how do I do this part-time? Like, he was a full-time cop, right? And he just retired recently. So now he has, more time. And it's just a wonderful niche. And what I'm aware of is everybody I've taught it to, it takes about 90 to 120 days for them to get it dialed in, figure it out. But then once they do, like he regularly takes 3 to 4 listings a month now. Sometimes he's had months where he's taken like 5, 6, over time, again, if you had a choice between sitting in an open house and like getting the course and figuring that out, the other one's going to be way more beneficial long-term, right? Way more beneficial. Let's see. Do you ever take on a property with over $1 million in city or county liens? My experience with that is that the city and the county will usually negotiate, right? We've had ones that have millions of liens and they settle for like $7,000 because it's like it's going by the day. Jose would know more about this because you probably deal with that more often.
No, to be honest, like I've heard that they negotiate, and I never actually bought a property that has all those liens, but there's an agent within our EXP family that has done that. And I know that she's negotiated with the city or the county, basically. So I think the main thing is just getting it under contract. And then once you have it under contract, making it obviously contingent upon the city releasing those liens. And if you're able to negotiate them at a certain price and you're able to negotiate with the county, then that would allow you to basically close on it. If you're interested in buying it, obviously, if you're interested in listing it, then finding an investor that has that type of experience that can help negotiate those types of liens would be helpful for you. But that's the kind of stuff that comes up in probates,
Sure.
Like,
and Wilkins is, he's with us at EXP. So just reach out to either me or Jose and we'll get you connected. I think you're talking about Annabella, right?
Annabella, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And she can walk, she's an awesome human. She'll walk you through like everything that she knows. So, again, the intention here is to kind of walk you through what a day in the life of an agent looks like, what it should look like, which we began at the beginning of this conversation. Remember, a day not spent prospecting is a day not spent in business. Whatever else you're doing, you didn't work. Okay. So I want to be prospecting between the hours of 8 and like 11:30, right? You have nothing else to do. And even if you do have something else to do, it's the engine that drives everything, right? So that should become religious and nothing should interrupt it. You should train everybody in your life that unless the building's burning down, they're not going to be able to reach you between those times. I mean, I told the group today that we did a live event with, I was like, I told my mom, like, if it's between those times and the house isn't burning down, email me. And she was like, oh my God, like, how dare you? I'm your mom. Why do I have to email you? I'm like, bro, somebody's got to take care of stuff. Like, I help her and I pay for stuff for her. Like, somebody's got to pay for it. So this is the time that allows me to do it. Right. So it's not a reflection of you. I still love you. I just have to do this in order to accomplish the goals and objectives and in order to help you.
I remember in order to be able to do that, I would literally put my phone on silent, my cell phone. I had an office line, which was like a Ring Central, like VOP line. I would prospect out of there. And then once 11:30 would come, I would basically check my phone, reply to all messages at that time, but that allowed me to focus on the lead generation portion of the business. That's how committed. And it was the same thing with even everybody around my life. They knew that. And people aren't going to like it, but at some point you got to think about, okay, do I want to make other people happy, or do I want to make myself happy?
Yeah. And or, usually when people interrupt you is because they're trying to make their problem your problem. So it's like, yeah, I'll address that, but I'm going to address it after we do the thing that, is not negotiable, right? Now, after you're done with that, what I would suggest is when you get off the phone, here's what I would do, is I would do another role play. So I'd role play in the morning at 7:30 before I get on the phone at 8. Then I do another role play at 11:30, let's say, and that's just for the listing presentation. Because what I find is that agents are not aggressive attempting to set appointments because they don't know what to say if they would set one. Okay. Yeah. So I'm doing two things. Look, I'm stacking. I'm learning the specialized knowledge of what to say, role playing in the morning, role playing in the afternoon. And then I'm doing the thing. Like I'm actually prospecting, right? It's lead generation, which leads to opportunities. Our job is to be in the presence of prospects. Okay. What's up, Roy? These fine lads. You're a fine lad yourself, brother. So what's up, Trevor? So then I prospect again. I role play again. Now that leads me to lunch. What I would suggest to everyone here, lunch is not a 2-hour outing. Lunch is not something super heavy that you're going to have to take a nap afterwards. Lunch is something light and quick. Repeat after me. Light and quick. Right? So, and that takes maybe like 30 minutes, like maybe. Okay? Somewhere in there, 30, 40 minutes. Then that brings me now to like this 1 o'clock slot from 1 to 2, let's say. If you have deals that you're doing, that's admin time. Okay. So, if you have emails that you need to get back to, you have to return some phone calls, great. You have a slot for that. Not whenever they come up, because most agents, Jose, they do whack-a-mole. If you've ever played one of those games with the kids, those video games, where the little mole pops up and they bang it on its head. That's what they do throughout the whole day. Something pops up, they bang it on the head, regardless of what time it pops up. But I want to do that in slots. It's called time blocking. So between 1 to 2 is that admin time. Great. And all levels of production, even for me, when I was doing 150, 200 deals a year, that was enough time, bro, to present a few offers, like answer any questions, like whatever, right? Then that leads us to the next time block, which is from 2, let's say, to 3. And that could be you work on a project, you work on a system, you work on getting your database all in one spot, you work on, getting everybody out of your phone into your CRM, like whatever that is, right? And then that leads us to from 3 to 6. And from 3 to 6, or let's say on beyond, 3 to 6 to 7, whatever it is, there's only a few options. And I think most people get stuck, Jose, is because they get overwhelmed by options. They don't know what to spend their time on. But by eliminating options, I don't have to think. Right? So I don't know if you noticed, like I wear like the same thing all the time. I don't want to think about it. It's the same thing. Like I don't want, you get like decision fatigue. When you're making like decisions all the time, you got a lot of stuff coming. I don't want to think about it. It's just like, yep, black t-shirt, hat, whatever, jacket, like I'm done. I don't have to think about it too much. I know you wear the suit.
White shirt, blue tie, bro.
Yeah, every time. Like I don't have to think about it, right? So
I have like 15 of these white shirts, bro.
I love it.
Like,
yeah, I have like 15 of just like black tees, bro. It's like I don't want to think about it. It's like all this.
I ordered some Elite Builder shirts and I bought like 4 of them, like because it's just like it's simple.
Yeah, exactly. So with my schedule, I want it to be the same way. So notice, if you do what I just propose or suggest to you, you do not have to think about what to do until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the only time a choice pops up. And you only have a handful of choices. Choice number 1 is to practice more. Okay. Again, if I want to acquire the skill, doing is better than watching. Simulating is one of the highest forms of learning. Great. Number 2 is I can go preview property. Particularly at the beginning, you don't know your marketplace. By going out and looking at properties, it causes them, you end up with this database in your brain. So that way, when you do talk to somebody, you're like, oh yeah, I was just in like your neighbor's house, Mrs. Smith's. And I can have an idea of markets and what things cost and like that sort of thing. Number 3 is if I have an appointment, go on it. Wonderful. Prepare for the appointment, go on the appointment. Number 4 is to prospect more. I got nothing else to do, so I might as well keep looking for more business. That's it. And while that may sound like, you're like, really, that's it? Here's what's true. In my experience, people can keep that schedule 1 day a week. Some people can do it 2 days a week. Very, very few can do it 5 to 6 days a week, day in and day out, rain or shine, no matter how many listings they have, no matter how many pendings they have, no matter what's going on in their life, they will follow that schedule to the T. If I took 5 listings in a week and it's Friday, I'm still prospecting on Saturday.
Yeah.
If I have 15 pendings, Monday morning comes around, 8 o'clock, 7:30, I'm on the phone role playing.
Most people take one listing and they want to like take the rest of the week off.
No, they go on vacation to Costa Rica. Like that's what they do. I've bumped into like 3 people lately that like that's their thing. They've been on vacation 6 times this year. I'm like, what are you? And then, but at the same time, like we're on calls and like they don't have like much money. Yeah, they don't have a bunch of deals. I'm like, bro, like what are you doing? So, and even though that sounds really simple, I know. Not only do I know because I did it for 17 years, allowed me to sell 100 homes a year plus for 10 years in a row, doing 200 deals a year twice and over 2,000 properties, 80% listings sold. I also have a mentor in my life, the great and powerful Oz, right? Mr. Weichel out in Santa Clarita, who's been doing it for 30 years. He wakes up at the same time, 4:30 every day. He's at the gym at 5:30 every day. He's in the office at the same time every day. This guy makes millions of dollars a year. He still follows a schedule like each and every day, rain or shine. It's exactly, it's just dialed in. And it's really simple, but it's not to be confused with easy.
Well, the other thing I would add, this kind of made the decision simple for me. I would stop by a place called Fresh and Easy, and I would basically buy meals for the entire week. And I would stop by Monday morning at 7 o'clock. So when it came time to lunchtime, I didn't even have to make a decision as to what to eat because I had the meals right there. It was just like, okay, it was a very simple decision. I didn't have to think about, okay, where do I drive to or anything like that. It was like very simple. I would grab the meal, put it in the microwave, I'd eat it, and then within 30 minutes, I'd be back on track versus agents be like, oh, where am I going to go eat? Oh, let's go to Chipotle. Oh, Chipotle, there's traffic 30 minutes later. So instead of like doing the hour lunch, I did the 30 minutes. And then in those extra 30 minutes, I chanted my scripts or I wrote out my scripts. So it was the same amount of time. Everybody's given the same amount of time. It's just like, okay, like, are you willing to do what needs to do to get to where you want to go? And some people may be like, well, Jose, that's so boring. Or Jose, like I want to eat what I want to eat versus that. It's like I made certain decisions in my life as to what was most important to me. And what was most important to me is instead of it taking 30 years for me to make millions of dollars selling real estate, I wanted to do it in 5 years.
That's right.
And because I made those decisions, I was able to get to where I wanted to go.
Yeah, and your schedule, you can tell the power of a schedule based on the outcomes it produces.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again, not because people didn't hear me, but because it's really important, is you can tell the power of a schedule based on the outcomes that it produces. So the outcomes that what me and Jose are talking to you about right now that it produces, if you follow the schedule, is you being one of the top agents in your marketplace. Like, correct. Period, end of story. I know that's true. The same way I know the sky is blue and the grass is green, not because I read it in a book, because I did it. And then Jose came to me when he was a young buck and he wasn't doing too many deals. And he said, hey, bro, what's the schedule you keep? And I told him, he did it. And then look what happened, right? Almost 1,000 properties sold, millions of dollars worth of real estate. So, our intention, again, as we come together on these things on a regular basis, is to continue to keep serving as a guide to help you to do more transactions. Our goal is to help you to do more deals, and everything we do is designed around it. So we appreciate you guys. Stay tuned in, and we look forward to reconnecting soon.
Peace out, guys.
So let's go, team.